What if, in the middle of a routine day, you encountered someone who made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself? Imagine being in the same place, day in and day out, watching people come and go, never really expecting anything to change. And then one day someone walks through the door, and you realize that no matter how hard you try, you can't turn away. What if the very essence of who you are started shifting because of a single, fleeting connection, an unspoken bond that others might never even notice? Think about it. How far would you go to keep a secret that could unravel your carefully built life? If you were standing just feet away from a person who seemed to see through the surface and understand you, truly understand you, would you step closer, or would you step back, afraid of what it might mean? What if, in that brief moment, you could feel a kind of connection that you've never allowed yourself to experience, yet something inside you couldn't help but crave? Meet Matt, the hotel concierge, a man who's grown accustomed to standing just behind the scenes, observing the lives of others. Day after day, he greets guests with a welcoming smile, offering advice on where to dine, arranging special requests, and ensuring each guest feels like the center of attention. But beneath his professional exterior lies a man who feels nearly invisible. To the guests, he's merely a fixture of the lobby, a polite voice with no story of his own. And though he plays his part with grace, there's a deep sense of loneliness that follows him. He spends so much time making others feel seen, yet he feels as if no one truly sees him. It's a life he's chosen because, in many ways, it feels easier than facing the things he's kept hidden. Then there's Gabriel, the guest who just arrived, a man with an energy that's both magnetic and quiet, a blend that makes him hard to ignore. When he entered the lobby, there was something unspoken in the way he moved, something that made Matt's usual defenses falter for a moment. Gabriel is someone who doesn't seem bound by the same invisible constraints. He carries himself with ease, as if he's comfortable wherever he is, which only serves to intrigue Matt more. As the evening progresses, Matt can't help but notice Gabriel's lingering glances, the way his gaze holds a little longer than usual, like he's trying to see past Matt's well-practiced mask. Their first conversation is brief, but there's an intensity in Gabriel's voice, an openness that feels rare. "You must meet a lot of people in your line of work," Gabriel says, his voice warm, almost inviting. There's a slight smile in his tone, one that makes Matt's pulse quicken just a little. "Yes," Matt replies, forcing himself to keep it casual. "It's part of the job, always meeting new faces, always saying goodbye just as quickly." Gabriel's eyes hold his, unflinching. "Must be hard, all that coming and going. No time to really know anyone." Matt looks away for a moment, feeling exposed in a way he hadn't expected. "I suppose it makes it easier, in some ways. Not letting people in, not risking anything that could be difficult to explain later on." As the conversation comes to a close, Gabriel gives him one last look, a look that holds a silent invitation, an offer to step into something unknown and perhaps a little frightening. It's an offer that Matt has only ever dreamed of, one that challenges him to consider what it would mean to live openly, without fear. And as Matt watches Gabriel walk away, he's left with a question that echoes in his mind, one that he knows he can't ignore. How long can he keep living in the shadows, and what will it cost him if he chooses to stay there? As Gabriel turns away, Matt feels a subtle pull, something he hasn't experienced in years. He finds himself watching, almost studying, the way Gabriel moves through the lobby, as if he belongs there yet stands slightly apart from the usual crowd. That night, as Matt closes up his shift, he can't shake the feeling that something important has just begun. He replays their conversation in his mind, dissecting each word, every glance, wondering if he imagined the unspoken understanding between them. The next day, Matt prepares himself to interact with Gabriel again, both nervous and excited. He's already begun to imagine different scenarios in his head. Will Gabriel bring up their conversation from last night, or will he let it pass as if it meant nothing? Part of Matt hopes Gabriel will push, that he'll say something, anything, to nudge Matt out of his carefully crafted shell. And yet, he's terrified of what might happen if that line is crossed. As the day unfolds, Matt keeps an eye out for Gabriel, wondering if he'll seek him out or if their connection was just a passing moment. And just as he starts to think it was all in his mind, Gabriel appears, approaching the desk with a casual smile that both soothes and ignites Matt's nerves. "Good to see you again, Matt," Gabriel says with a warmth that feels intimate in a way that Matt hasn't experienced before. It's just a greeting, yet there's something deeper in his tone, a hint of familiarity, of genuine interest. Matt tries to keep his composure, reminding himself that he's at work, that his life isn't meant for romantic entanglements, especially not with someone like Gabriel. But before he can stop himself, he responds with a small, genuine smile. Likewise, Gabriel. I hope you've been enjoying your stay. Gabriel leans in slightly, his voice dropping to a lower, more personal tone. I've been enjoying it, though I have to admit, you've made it much more interesting. Matt's heart skips a beat, his mind racing with what feels like a dozen conflicting emotions. He's never allowed himself to entertain these kinds of thoughts, not at work, not in a life that's so carefully managed. But Gabriel's words open a door, a small, nearly imperceptible crack in the walls Matt has built around himself. You know, Gabriel continues, his gaze steady and unwavering, I travel often. Hotels, airports, new cities, they start to blend together after a while. But here, there's something different. Or maybe it's someone different. Gabriel, sensing Matt's hesitation, doesn't press further. Instead, he smiles, a gentle, almost understanding smile, as if to say, it's okay. I'll wait. And with that, he leaves, allowing Matt the space to process, to decide for himself what he wants. By the time his shift ends, Matt feels a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread. He's on the brink of something new, something unknown, and the choice is his. As he locks up for the night, he sees Gabriel standing outside, as if waiting. Their eyes meet, and in that moment, Matt knows that whatever happens next, his life will never be quite the same. One evening, as Matt goes about his duties, his manager, Mr. Thompson, a seasoned professional with a keen eye, approaches him with a raised brow. Matt, he begins, his tone firm but polite, you seem different lately. A bit distracted, maybe. Everything all right? Matt feels his pulse quicken. He knows he must be careful, that any hint of distraction might raise suspicions he can't afford. He quickly offers a polite smile, saying, just a little tired, sir. Long hours. Mr. Thompson studies him for a moment, his gaze unwavering. Matt knows that any sign of attachment, any sign of interest in a guest, could jeopardize not just his job but the quiet, controlled life he's built. The rules are clear, and he's never questioned them before. But now, with Gabriel lingering in his thoughts, he feels the weight of those rules pressing down on him. Later that night, as Matt finally finished his shift, he sees Gabriel waiting for him again, leaning casually against a pillar just outside the hotel. They exchange a quiet smile, a small act of defiance against the structured, impersonal world of the hotel. Gabriel steps forward, hands in his pockets, and offers a warm, easy grin. I was hoping I might see you again. Matt hesitates, his mind racing. He knows he shouldn't be here, that he should keep his distance, yet he can't bring himself to walk away. I'm glad you're still around, he replies softly, the honesty slipping out before he has a chance to guard himself. They decide to walk together, stepping away from the bright hotel lights and into the softer glow of the city streets. But just as they're sharing a quiet laugh over an old story Gabriel tells, Matt hears a familiar voice. It's his best friend, Emily, standing across the street, her eyes widening as she recognizes him. She walks over, her face a mix of surprise and curiosity. Matt, I didn't expect to see you out so late. And she glances at Gabriel, offering a polite smile. Who's this? Matt feels a wave of panic rise in his chest. Emily has known him for years, and though she's supportive, he's never told her about this part of himself. He's always kept his personal life separate, hidden even from those closest to him. But now, standing here with Gabriel, he realizes he's at a crossroads. He can introduce Gabriel as just a guest, or he can take a step toward being honest, letting someone in for the first time. He takes a quick breath, looking to Gabriel, who watches him with an expression of understanding, as if he's silently offering Matt the choice without pressure. Matt's voice shakes just slightly as he says, Emily, this is Gabriel. We met at the hotel. Emily raises an eyebrow, sensing the subtle tension, but choosing not to push. Well, it's nice to meet you, Gabriel. She turns to Matt with a knowing smile. Maybe you and I should catch up soon. Matt nods, grateful for her discretion, but the encounter leaves him shaken. As Emily walks away, he feels the weight of what just happened, the thin thread by which he's holding this connection, knowing how quickly it could unravel. He glances at Gabriel, who simply smiles and says, it's okay. You don't have to explain anything you're not ready to. They continue their walk in silence, each of them lost in thought. Matt can feel the walls closing in, the tension mounting. He knows that if anyone else at the hotel sees them, if his manager catches even a hint of this connection, everything he's worked for could be at risk. And yet, the idea of walking away from Gabriel feels impossible, like giving up on the one chance he's had at something real, something that feels like it belongs only to him. As the days go by, Matt becomes more cautious, careful to keep his interactions with Gabriel discreet, their conversations brief and held in quiet corners. Yet, the more he tries to pull back, the stronger his feelings grow, and with them, the risks increase. One evening, as they share a brief, stolen moment in a quiet hallway, Gabriel looks at him, his expression more serious than before. "Matt," he begins, his voice soft, almost hesitant, "are you afraid of being seen with me?" The question catches Matt off guard. He wants to deny it, to assure Gabriel that he's just being careful, but he knows the truth is more complicated. He falters, his voice barely a whisper. "I've lived my whole life keeping things private. It's not easy to change that overnight." Gabriel nods, his gaze gentle but steady. "I understand. I don't want to push you into anything you're not ready for. But I also don't want to be just another secret you have to hide." The words linger in the air, a quiet challenge that leaves Matt feeling both vulnerable and alive in a way he's never felt before. He realizes that Gabriel isn't just asking for more time together. He's asking for honesty, for a place in Matt's life that isn't hidden in shadows. That night, as Matt lies awake in his small apartment, staring at the ceiling, he feels the weight of his dilemma more than ever. One evening, as Matt finishes his shift and prepares to meet Gabriel for a late walk, he notices something different. A colleague, Bob, standing at the end of the hall, watching him with a peculiar expression. Bob, who has always been polite but distant, now seems almost possessive in the way he observes Matt, his gaze lingering just a little too long. Matt feels a slight chill as he realizes Bob isn't simply curious, he's suspicious. And there, in Bob's intense gaze, is something else, an interest that Matt hadn't seen before. It doesn't take long before Matt learns the truth. Bob has been noticing Gabriel too, and it's not just casual observation. Over the next few days, Bob seems to be wherever Gabriel is, offering a smile here, a friendly word there, subtly making his presence known. Matt feels a pang of unease, something he hasn't felt before. It's not just that Bob is interested, it's that his interest seems to be directed not only at Gabriel but also, in a strange way, at Matt himself, as though he's testing him, pushing him to see how he reacts. One night, as Matt and Gabriel are sharing a quiet moment in the dim light of the hotel lobby, Bob appears unexpectedly, his eyes gleaming with a confidence that leaves Matt unsettled. He approaches them, addressing Gabriel with an easy familiarity that borders on possessiveness. "Gabriel," he says, with a small, calculated smile, "you seem to have made quite an impression here. But I have to wonder, have you had the full tour yet?" Gabriel glances at Matt, sensing the tension. He politely declines Bob's offer, but the look in Bob's eyes suggests this won't be the last of it. Matt feels a surge of protectiveness he hasn't allowed himself to feel before. After Bob leaves, Gabriel turns to Matt, sensing his unease. "Is he always like that?" he asks, his tone light but concerned. Matt tries to brush it off, forcing a smile. "Bob likes to be involved. He's harmless, really." But deep down, Matt knows it's not that simple. He senses a challenge in Bob's behavior, as if Bob has seen through the subtlety of his and Gabriel's connection and is testing how far Matt will go to protect it. The next evening, as Matt makes his way to Gabriel's room with a small note slipped under his door, he's confronted again by Bob, who steps out of the shadows with an expression that's almost daring. "You're not the only one who sees him, you know," Bob says, his voice quiet but with an edge that cuts through the silence. "Bob," Matt says, his voice steady but tense, "whatever you think you know, it's none of your business." Bob raises an eyebrow, an almost amused expression on his face. "You think I haven't noticed? I see the way you look at him. But Gabriel isn't yours to hide away. If you're too afraid to step up, maybe you should let someone else show him what he's been missing." That night, he meets Gabriel, as planned, but his heart is heavy with the weight of his decision. He knows he can't keep playing it safe. They walk in silence for a while, Gabriel sensing his tension but waiting for Matt to speak. Finally, Matt stops, turning to face Gabriel with a look of quiet determination. "Gabriel, There's something I need to say. I haven't been honest about how much you mean to me. I've spent so long hiding who I am, and I thought I could keep things simple. But seeing Bob today, I realized, I can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend this doesn't matter. Gabriel watches him, a softness in his eyes that leaves Matt feeling vulnerable, exposed in a way he's never allowed himself to be. I know it's not easy for you, Gabriel replies, his voice gentle but steady. But you don't have to be afraid. I'm not going anywhere. In that moment, Matt feels a sense of release, as if the weight of years of secrecy has finally lifted. He knows Bob may still pose a threat, that his actions could stir trouble within the hotel, but he no longer feels the need to hide. For once, he's willing to face whatever comes, to defend what he's found with Gabriel, even if it means stepping into the open, no longer shielded by shadows. But just as he feels the relief of his confession, they hear a noise of familiar cough. Matt turns to see Bob standing nearby, watching them with a look of cold satisfaction. He knows now that Bob has been following them, that he's heard everything. Matt's heart sinks as he realizes the extent of Bob's intentions. Gabriel, sensing the tension, reaches out, his hand resting on Matt's shoulder. Whatever happens, Matt, I'm here. I'll stand with you. In that moment, Matt feels a surge of courage, knowing he's not alone in this fight. He realizes that he no longer wants to live in fear, that whatever comes next, he's willing to face it openly, standing beside Gabriel. The tension between Matt, Gabriel, and Bob reaches its breaking point. Days pass, and Bob seems more determined than ever to wedge himself between Matt and Gabriel, inserting himself into every conversation, every shared moment they manage to steal. It's as though Bob can sense Matt's growing confidence and is doing everything in his power to keep control over a situation that's slowly slipping from his grasp. Matt can feel his patience wearing thin, the quiet resolve within him building to something he can no longer contain. One day, as Matt finished the late shift, he sees Bob standing with Gabriel in the lobby, speaking with an intensity that Matt has come to recognize. He watches as Bob leans in, his hand subtly brushing Gabriel's arm, his expression just a little too familiar. Gabriel catches Matt's eye from across the lobby, a look of quiet reassurance in his expression, as if he's waiting for Matt to come forward, to step out of the shadows once and for all. Matt takes a breath, feeling the weight of his decision as he crosses the room, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. As he approaches, Bob's smile falters, his confidence dimming as he senses the shift in Matt's demeanor. Matt stops directly in front of them, his gaze steady as he addresses Bob. "Bob," he says, his voice calm but firm, "I need to speak to Gabriel alone." Bob scoffs, a hint of desperation flickering in his eyes. "Matt, don't take it personally," he replies with a forced smile, "but Gabriel and I were in the middle of a conversation. Perhaps another time." Matt cuts him off, his tone unwavering. "No, this can't wait." The lobby falls quiet as a few late-night guests glance their way, sensing the tension. Gabriel, sensing the weight of the moment, steps back from Bob and looks at Matt, his expression warm and supportive, as if silently encouraging him to stand his ground. With a slight shift in his expression, Bob realizes he's lost control. His eyes narrow as he looks between Matt and Gabriel, a faint bitterness seeping through his forced composure. "I see how it is," Bob mutters, a tinge of regret in his voice as he straightens, attempting to regain his pride. "Well, I hope you're both prepared for the complications this may bring." With one last look, Bob turns on his heel and walks away, his figure receding into the shadows of the lobby. Gabriel steps closer, a gentle smile breaking the silence. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he says, his voice warm and reassuring. "I thought I'd lost you for a moment there." "I'm sorry it took me so long," he begins, his words filled with emotion he can't hold back any longer. "I've spent so much of my life hiding, keeping everyone at a distance. But with you, for the first time, I felt like I could be seen. Really seen." "You don't have to apologize, Matt," Gabriel replies, his voice steady and comforting. "I know this isn't easy for you. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I've spent my whole life thinking I'd be safer in the shadows," Matt murmurs, his voice breaking slightly, as he looks into Gabriel's eyes. "But now I see, I was only holding myself back. I was afraid of being hurt, of losing control. But with you, for the first time, I feel like I can be free." Gabriel squeezes his hand, his own eyes filled with emotion. "Matt," he says softly, "you don't have to hide anymore. I'm here, and whatever happens, we'll face it together." In that moment, Matt feels a sense of peace he's never known, a feeling of completeness that fills the spaces he'd always left empty, spaces he'd kept closed off out of fear. He knows the risks haven't disappeared, that there may still be whispers, challenges, even complications. But with Gabriel by his side, those risks feel like something he can face, something he can embrace as part of the journey. The next day, Bob approaches Matt again, this time without the usual bravado. His steps are slower, more deliberate, as he makes his way toward the concierge desk where Matt is organizing some papers. When he speaks, his voice is unexpectedly calm, the sharp edge of competition gone. "Matt," he begins, his tone softer than Matt remembers. "I was a bit out of line last night." Matt looks up, surprised by the sincerity in Bob's voice. He had expected more of the usual deflection, the attempts to mask his hurt with sarcasm or anger, but there's none of that now. Bob continues, avoiding Matt's gaze for a moment as he speaks, almost as if he's unsure of what he's saying. "I've been trying to compete with something that was never really mine to control. I thought I could push you, maybe make you question your choices, but I see now that's not going to work." He pauses, the words seeming to weigh heavy on his chest. "You've got something real with Gabriel. I can't take that away, and I shouldn't try." Bob sighs, finally meeting Matt's eyes. "I was just trying to hold on to something that wasn't mine, something I thought I could make happen. But I see now that I've wasted enough time on things that don't really matter." "Thanks for saying that," Matt finally says, his voice steady but sincere. He feels a quiet relief in Bob's acceptance, as if a weight has been lifted from both their shoulders. It's not easy to let go of something you want. But you don't have to fight for something that isn't meant for you. I'm not the one who's going to make it work between us. That's all on you. And, Gabriel, well, he's what I want now. That's all there is to it." Bob nods, a resigned smile tugging at his lips, though it doesn't quite reach his eyes. "I get it, I was foolish, but I also think I was afraid of not being enough. I thought if I kept pushing, if I kept competing, maybe I could win." He sighs, running a hand through his hair. "But I can see it now. You're both good for each other. I don't have a place in that, and honestly, I don't know if I ever really did." Bob's face softens, and he gives Matt a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Good luck with him," Bob says, his voice tinged with something that sounds almost like respect. "You've got what I didn't have the courage to fight for. Don't mess it up." With that, Bob turns and walks away, his steps slow but sure. Matt watches him go, a part of him surprised by the quiet acceptance that Bob has offered. As Matt turns to find Gabriel waiting for him, a small but steady smile spreads across his face. Gabriel's eyes meet his with a quiet understanding, as if to say, "It's over now. We can finally be free." Matt steps forward, his hand reaching for Gabriel's. "I'm glad it's over," Matt says softly. "I never wanted to fight, not with him, and not with you." Gabriel smiles, a warmth in his eyes that makes Matt's heart race. "We've been through a lot, but we're here now, and that's all that matters." The days following the confrontation with Bob bring a sense of peace to Matt, but also an undeniable shift in how he sees the world around him. Gabriel and Matt continue their quiet connection, now unencumbered by doubt or fear. There's a calm between them, a soft understanding that doesn't need to be spoken but is felt in every shared glance, every word exchanged. But beneath the surface, there's something more, an electric tension that builds with every passing moment. Something unspoken, something undeniable. It's one night, after an evening stroll through the city, when it happens. They find themselves outside the hotel, the quiet hum of the city fading into the background as the world around them becomes still. The air is crisp, cool against their skin, but the warmth between them makes everything else seem distant. Gabriel stops walking and turns to face Matt, his eyes soft, his expression vulnerable. "Matt," Gabriel says, his voice steady but laced with a quiet yearning, "I don't want to wait anymore. I can't pretend I don't feel this. Feel you." His words are a gentle whisper, a confession he's been holding back for far too long. Matt stands there, his heart racing, the weight of Gabriel's gaze pulling him in. He's never felt more certain, more sure of what he wants. His lips part, and before he can stop himself, he steps forward, closing the distance between them. He can feel the electricity in the air, the tension that's built between them for weeks, and without thinking, he reaches up, his hand brushing Gabriel's cheek, a soft caress that feels both tentative and bold. Gabriel's eyes flicker with understanding, and in that moment, Matt knows they're both on the same page. Without another word, Gabriel leans in, his lips meeting Matt's in a kiss that's gentle at first, testing, asking for permission, but soon deepens as the urgency of their feelings overtakes them. The kiss is everything Matt has been craving, everything he's kept hidden. It's not just a kiss, it's a revelation, a release of all the emotions he's held inside for so long. It's a promise of something more, something real. The world fades away as they kiss, their bodies pressing closer, hearts racing in sync. Matt can taste the sweetness of Gabriel's lips, the quiet passion of a connection that has been building for so long. Every kiss, every touch feels like a revelation, like the first step towards something deeper, something that feels impossible to turn back from. When they finally pull apart, breathless, Matt looks at Gabriel, his chest heaving with the intensity of the moment. I've wanted that for so long, Matt says, his voice thick with emotion, his hand still resting on Gabriel's cheek. Gabriel smiles softly, his hand cupping Matt's face. So have I, but I wanted to wait for the right moment. I wanted it to be real. And now it is. Matt's heart swells with emotion, the magnitude of what they've just shared settling over him like a warm embrace. There's no more hiding, no more fear of what might happen. This is real. And this is just the beginning. As they walk back to the hotel together, hand in hand, Matt reflects on everything that's led him to this moment. So, what happens now? Matt asks quietly, his hand tightening around Gabriel's. Gabriel glances at him with a smile that makes Matt's heart skip. Now we keep going, he says, together. And as they stand there, in the quiet of the night, Matt realizes that love isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace, something to be grateful for. And it's something that's been waiting for him all along. Matt's journey from hiding in the shadows to stepping into the light has been a testament to the power of love, vulnerability, and the courage to choose yourself. He's learned that, sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. And when we finally open ourselves up to the possibility of love, we give ourselves the chance to truly live. Have you ever fought for a partner, for someone you love, even when the world seemed like it was working against you? I know that for many of us, love can be a fight for acceptance, a fight against fear, and sometimes, a fight for the courage to be our true selves. So, I'd love to hear your stories. Have you ever had to fight for love, especially in a relationship that felt so deep, so meaningful, and so worth every challenge? Share your experiences in the comments below, because your story might just resonate with someone else who's walking a similar path. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're not already a part of our community, come join us. Let's keep the conversation going, and remember, love is worth every step of the journey, no matter how hard the road may seem. This is Pride Stories Unfiltered, your #1 pride.